Welcome to Kansas Ag Report. I'm Ken Rogers. On this week's program, we talk sheep. You know, at one time, there were a number of sheep in Kansas, still a few around. We'll talk with Susan Schultz. She's the president of the American Sheep Industry Association. She's out of Ohio, and you may find that sheep could work in your operation. We'll also have features from the Kansas Soybean Commission, Kansas Department of Agriculture, and Kansas Grain Sorghum, and the weekly update from the Kansas Livestock Association, and market information from Pinion, a division of K-Coe Isom.
Kansas Ag Report brought to you in part by the Kansas Soybean Commission, the Soybean Checkoff, progress powered by Kansas farmers, Kansas Farm Bureau, a grassroots ag organization representing the state's farm and ranch families since 1919, kfb.org. And the Kansas Wheat Commission, lending in the adoption of profitable innovations from wheat, online at kswheat.com.
In agricultural news from agview.net, high prices for U.S. corn, soybeans, and wheat are not expected to be a short-term shock, according to new Rabo research report. The grain drain after Ukraine, while the sudden shutdown of trade, the Black Sea region has sent corn and wheat prices to their highest levels in a decade. The 10-year outlook for all major crops has moved up to a new price level. This report cites transformative geopolitical changes and continued increases in demand and limited acreage availability as the move drivers. Rabo Research expects the U.S. to increase its exports to help fill the demand gap. For the 22-23 crop marketing year, Rabo Research estimates the average on-farm price, which takes a local basis into account, will be $5.70 for corn, $10.50 for wheat, with their export sales increasing by some 200 million bushels. Higher prices, though, don't spell bigger profits. Costs for farm inputs like seed, fertilizer, and land will also rise, squeezing the farmers' margins over the next decade. Iowa Republican Senator Chuck Grassley this week introduced an updated version of the Cattle Price Discovery and Transparency Act. It was first introduced in a bipartisan way last November, and this updated legislation then allows for more regions, 5 to 7, encompassing the entire continental U.S., then also establishes minimum levels of fed cattle purchases made through approved pricing mechanisms. The update retains the cash trade mandates included in the previous version of the bill. National Farmers Union President Rob LaRue said the legislation would shed light on the market and bring about greater fairness. The updated bill also increases penalties for violations by packers and requires that livestock mandatory reporting data be made consistently available. And new data from USDA's Economic Research Service shows restaurant transactions fell 47% in 2020 compared to 2019. We remember in March of 2020, the federal government declared a national emergency in response to the coronavirus pandemic. And in that response, many state and local governments implemented social distancing measures, stay-at-home orders, and the mandatory closure of businesses in high-risk industries. Restaurants often included in these mandates, which forced many to close the dining rooms, if not their entire business. That sharply reduced restaurant visits around the country. USDA's Economic Research Service released that new data earlier this week as part of the COVID-19 working paper examining food away from home spending. You can find more ag news at agview.net. Back in just a moment.
Kansas Ag Report brought to you in part by Kansas Grain Sorghum, growers working together. Learn more at ksgrainsorghum.org. Grass and Grain, online or in the mail, keeping Kansas farmers informed for over 60 years. grassandgrain.com.
Grain sorghum is one of the most important cereal crops worldwide, and Kansas leads the nation in its production. Over the years, sorghum has been either exported, used in animal feed domestically, or for other industrial uses. Recently, its use in the ethanol market has seen tremendous growth, with 30% of domestic sorghum typically going to ethanol production. Kansas Grain Sorghum is committed to sorghum research, market development, and education. Learn more at ksgrainsorghum.org.
And we're going to take a little different turn right now. Talk with Susan Schultz, who is a farmer from Ohio, and she's the president of the American sheep industry. And a lot of times we talk about cattle, of course, in Kansas and row crops, but I kind of stopped by with the farm broadcasters and kind of piqued my interest. And so, Susan, you know, we do see some things about that I would probably, lack of a better term, say there's a resurgence. You maybe not agree, but it seems like sheep is one of those, and lamb have really kind of taken Americans by storm again.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, the consumption of lamb is up. That's just phenomenal for our industry, and the number of people that are looking at adding sheep to their cattle operations is up. And there's real reasons for targeted grazing. And sheep can provide that. Solar panels, wineries. Sheep can provide a lot of, I think I told you earlier, the diversity of our industry. I can't think of another animal industry that's more diverse.
Well, one of the things that kind of piqued my interest is, a lot of times when we think about sheep production, we think of those rolling hills out in the West and those big herds. But, when you say you're from Ohio, it really piqued my interest. You say, well, there may be some housed sheep production. So
yes.
Tell us about that and how that is going, how that works.
We talk about, they're called intensive operations in relationship to extensive operations. And we have lots of people that are housing their sheep. Number one, for predator problems, another for some health issues. And they're housing their sheep. They're raising multiple lamb crops and multiple numbers of lambs. We have some producers that are lambing 3 times a year instead of 1, and they're raising 2+ lambs per ewe. You can make money doing that.
Wow. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about nutrition, talk about consumption. It just seems like lamb is becoming more and more offered on many restaurants.
Oh, yes. And people have rediscovered lamb. They love it. They love the variety. It's an alternative to other proteins. We call it the premier protein because we just think it excels. And the American Lamb Board, which is our sister organization, has all sorts of recipes, ways to cook it. It's not difficult. Kansas just had their sheep meeting maybe 3 weeks ago, and there's lots of interest in Kansas for raising sheep, and I really encourage people to get involved.
Well, I want to continue this conversation, and we're going to get in maybe to some of the economics and some of those other things maybe that we'll discover. So Susan Schultz is a Ohio farmer and the president of the American Sheep Industry.
You got it perfect.
So let's take a break. We're back with more in just a moment.
The Kansas Wheat Innovation Center in Manhattan is rediscovering ways to get improved varieties and new genetics in the hands of farmers faster. Grower-led and checkoff-funded research initiatives are bringing about positive change. This grassroots leadership provides a strong voice in Topeka and Washington, D.C. Now is the time to partner with Kansas Wheat in moving wheat forward. Kansas Wheat Commission and Kansas Association of Wheat Growers. Farmers investing in their future and yours. Log on to rediscoverwheat.org.
What if U.S. soybean meal were more than a commodity? If seed companies and the soybean checkoff built a better variety? That future is here. The time is now. To meet end-user demands, the soybean checkoff is investing in the compositional quality of soybeans, including meal. A message from the Kansas Soybean Commission, the Soybean Checkoff. Progress powered by Kansas farmers.
Next time you see a beautiful field of corn, reach out and thank the farmers who work tirelessly to raise corn for livestock feed, renewable fuels, and exports to feed a growing world population. The farmers on the Kansas Corn Commission work for Kansas corn with grower-funded checkoff dollars that support foreign and domestic market development, research, promotion, and education to expand opportunities for Kansas farmers. To learn more, visit kscorn.com.
Many seed companies claim to offer the latest genetics, but how many have tested those genetics in soils just like yours? The Oldie Seed Know to Grow research program has fully tested the latest seed genetics in soils that are right in your neighborhood. The Oldie Seed Know to Grow program can recommend the best performing hybrids from technologies like Enlist, Extend, and Liberty Link that will optimize the yield and profit of every acre on your farm. Contact Oldie Seed today.
Kansas Ag Report brought to you in part by the Kansas Livestock Association, supporting members' business interests and meeting consumer demands. KLA.org. Oldie Seed Farms, carrying soil-specific seed. Find them on the web at oldieseed.com. That's OHLDE seed.com. And Kansas Corn, building the future at kansascorn.com.
And we're joined this week by Susan Schultz, who is the president of the American sheep industry, and she's a farmer from Ohio. So I want to continue this conversation, something maybe we don't talk a lot about, but she piqued my interest about possibly, if we're looking for expansion in the farming operation, sheep. So let's talk a little bit about the economics of it. Where we are, we're cattle country. Raise some hogs, but you were saying that sheep could complement a cattle operation.
Absolutely. Cattle and sheep eat different forages, and so lots of people run sheep and cattle together. If I was wanting to diversify my agriculture operation, I would add sheep. It's fairly low cost to get into the operation. The management is doable for most people. We have, as we talked, we have intensive operations where you can house your sheep like they do in the Pipestone, Minnesota area. We have extensive operations. If you have grasslands that need to be taken care of, you can have them out. The diversity is unbelievable.
What's one of the biggest challenges, it would seem to me, is the fabrication, that, because as we've seen, the consolidation only in cattle and pork, but sheep, years ago we had a burgeoning industry in Kansas. Many of those went away with the markets, but as well as how they get them processed, how to get it back to the consumer. So is that maybe one of the biggest obstacles you see, not only say in our area, but nationwide, trying to get this continue to wrap up?
Well, we were very concerned about it because we had one of our bigger packing plants that had to go out of business. But we have a brand new plant in Brush, Colorado, and there's a new plant in Texas, and they are looking for lambs. So right now, we need to increase our supply, and so that's why I'm invigorated that people should be raising sheep.
Okay, so we didn't talk. Let's talk about your family your operation. How long is it? Multi-generational, or how'd you get involved?
Forever. We're third generation.
Wow.
And we're seed stock producers, and I was raised in a family farm. We always had sheep and cattle, but my husband was in the purebred side, and so we've continued that, and it's been our life, and it's been our friends, and we, as you can tell, we're passionate about the sheep industry.
Sure. We could probably spend another hour talking about the policy issues, but we'll maybe save it for another time.
Yeah.
But let folks know if they want more information about sheep. How can they learn more?
Go to the website for American Sheep Industry. If you're new, I want you to seriously consider that Sheep Production Handbook. It's a wonderful reference, and there's all sorts of people out there to help you. So.
Susan, appreciate it.
Yeah,
very interesting.
It's fun.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Susan Schultz, who is a Ohio farmer and the president of the American Sheep Industry. Stay with us. We'll have more in just a moment.
What if sustainability were synonymous with U.S. soy? If energy efficiency, water quality, and soil health help define U.S. soy's value, that future is here, the time is now. To meet end-user demands, the Soybean Checkoff is committing to sustainability that's achievable, worthwhile, and enduring. A message from the Kansas Soybean Commission, the Soybean Checkoff, progress powered by Kansas farmers.
A group of Kansas Soybean Commissioners toured Morocco during March to see firsthand this rapidly growing soybean market. Among the tour stops were a feed mill, a poultry processing facility, a dairy, feedlots, and small-scale family farms. Poultry processing and consumption in Morocco creates a strong opportunity for U.S. soy. Consumption of poultry and eggs is on the rise, and the country is home to a number of larger-scale processors. It is a top 10 soybean meal market, and poultry utilizes 85% of that meal. With there being minimal soybean crushing within Morocco, soybean meal exports from the U.S. are a major value driver for U.S. soy. District 7 Commissioner Gary Robbins shares that he believes checkoff dollars are well invested in putting soy in Morocco's feed mills and the poultry industry, and that the representatives he spoke with truly appreciated good quality soybeans from the U.S. Commissioner Rayland Phelan shares that new processing